Hello, welcome back everybody to another video, another lesson. That means, you know it, another joke. So, why did the farmer win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Okay, speaking of someone else who's outstanding in his field, me. Okay, so today we're going to talk about squares and square roots. And if I'm going to get my screen up, all right, let's talk about squares and square roots. Right now, you guys have been exposed to a little bit of squares, but we're going to go a little bit further into it today. So, um, as you know, I'm going to talk about squares. I'm going to talk about square roots, and then I'll touch on something called cubic roots or cube roots. So the first thing we need to know is that, remember, a number, anything multiplied by itself is its square. So we're talking about things to the power of 2. That's what a square number is. Now, there's a million square numbers out there, but I'm just going to pick the most common ones. These ones, I want you to actually be almost like ingraining them into your mind. When you see these numbers, you should be thinking, ugh, square number, okay? So 1 squared is 1, because it's just 1 times 1. 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. Now, a lot of mistakes that people make is they'll say 6. 3 squared is not 6. It's not 3 times 2. It's 3 times 3, and that should give us 9. Okay, just as an example, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest. 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. 5 squared is 5 times 5, which is 25. 6 squared becomes 36. Now, what I probably should say here is if you're watching this video, maybe pause it and see if you can complete the rest and just double check if you've got it right all the way to the end. So have a go at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. See how you go. Now, if you didn't pause, you're lazy, but it's okay. I'm going to go through them anyway. If you did, good job. Hopefully you got them right. 7 squared is 49. 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 100. 11 squared is 121. And 12 squared is 144. Okay, so these are the numbers that I want you to be ingraining in your head. If you see the number 49, I want you to think, 7 squared. Or 64, it's like, oh, that's a square number. It's going to be 8 squared. Okay, now, how the questions might look is you might have some questions that look like this. They'll say evaluate. And if you remember, evaluate just means find the actual number, right? So actual number. So I don't want to write 6 times 6. I don't want to expand this one. I don't want to do anything to it. I just want to find the actual number. So 6 squared, we already wrote that down, is just right above us. It's just 36. But sometimes they'll also ask us to do some kind of addition and they'll add some other things to go with it. So let's do this one. 3 squared plus 4 squared. Well, I know that 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. And I know that 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to go 9 plus 16, add them together, and then the actual number answer is 25. I've evaluated that. Hopefully that makes sense. If you need to go back and rewatch those, please go over and rewatch those, and hopefully they make sense. Now, a square root. Okay, now this is, you know how everything has an opposite, plus has minus, times has divide, all these kinds of things. So a square, that's what a square root is to a square, the opposites. So it does the opposite of squaring. And I want you to think of it this way. It finds the base number that multiplies by itself to get the answer, right? So you've got a square root and it kind of looks like that. Now, don't get it confused with this. That's your division. Your square root is a little bit pointier and it's got that little tail. Okay, now there's an invisible little 2 that they put there, and it's the exact same thing as saying as if the 2 wasn't there. Okay, every time you see a square root, we assume it's a little 2 there. You don't need to worry about that for now. So it says evaluate. Now, if I see the square root of 16, I'm trying to find, okay, what's the number that multiplies by itself to get 16, right? And so 16, I'm looking at all these numbers, and 16 is definitely something that, okay, I know that 4 times 4 gives me 16. So that means the square root of 16 is actually 4. Okay. And again, for question B here, we've got the square root of 100. So I'm thinking what 2 numbers will multiply together to give me 100? It's got to be 10 times 10. So that means the answer here would be 10. And the last one here is, what if we have something a bit more complex? If we have something a bit more complex, what we have to do is we have to solve what's on the inside first. We have to fix that up and simplify it. or evaluate it at the very least. Okay, so here 10 squared is 100, 8 squared is 64. And so this becomes the square root. 100 take away 64 is 36. And then your answer here would become just 6. So that means 10 squared take away 8 squared, all under a square root, your answer would be 6. Now, I know a lot of people would have been thinking, oh, is it not 2 squared? Because 10 squared take away 8 squared makes sense that it would be 2 squared. Doesn't really work in this logic here because of the differences in numbers and powers, and they kind of work differently. So make sure that if you get anything that's a little bit of work under the square root, make sure you figure that out first, and then you can figure out the rest. Okay, so that is incorrect. You've got to do it kind of the long way. All right, now, if you've held on to this far, well done. I've just got one more little thing here. There's also something called cube roots. Now, if you remember, square was to the power of 2. So that means cube is to the power of 3. So it finds the base number that multiplies by itself 3 times to get the number. And it looks exactly like a square root, but it's got the little number 3 there, which is important. So evaluate this one. I need to think, okay, what number multiplied by itself 3 times will give me the answer of 8? So here it's got to be, it can't be 1 because 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1. Let's try 2. 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. The answer must be 2. And same thing for this one here. If you got the cube root of 27, now we know that it has to be bigger than 2. Let's try 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Times 3 again is 27. So the cube root of 27 must be 3. Okay, now these don't come up super often, but when they do come up, it's helpful to know that it's just similar to a square root, but instead of multiplying by itself 2 times, we want to multiply it by itself 3 times to get whatever's under the square root. And I think that is it for today. Hopefully that made sense and hopefully you guys understood it. Yeah, I hope you guys have fun doing this one and I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.